Good morning, one and all. Thank you so much for joining on 17th edition of Business Opportunity of a Chai webinar series. It's a series which Franchise India is doing every day to take you through the journey of all important brands we serve. We welcome our panelists Gaurav sir and Sonia ma'am for today's session. Just for your information, Gaurav sir will join us soon. We also introduce our brand of the day, Prashant and Sachin. They represent JEI Learning. But before we take the session and PPT with each one of you, I would just request my colleague Dheeraj to play a video so that we understand what brand is all about.
Wouldn't you love to see your children bright-eyed as they realize the subjects they've been struggling with are not so difficult after all? Do you want to see them become confident and excel at school? JEI is here to make it happen. Established in 1992, JEI offers academic enrichment and remedial programs for children from pre-K through ninth grade. The key subjects that we offer are math, problem-solving math, English, reading and writing, and critical thinking safari. Whether your child has trouble with one or several subjects, we will administer comprehensive diagnostic tests to find out exactly what the missing links are. We will then prescribe a personalized study program based on your child's specific needs. Our curriculum is fully aligned with the state standards, so you can rest assured that your child will be learning exactly what he or she needs for school. On top of that, our qualified instructors will help students with key concepts in a small group setting of 5 to 1. Every student will get the attention he or she needs. Give your child a better life through a better education. Call us today to learn more, or visit our website using the link below.
Thank you so much, Dheeraj, for a lovely video. Now I would invite Prashant and Sachinji to take it further.
Thanks a lot, Archana, for the introduction, and thanks to the Franchise India team for arranging this webinar. I just want to start off with the presentation and explain to you what JEI is all about. So, assuming that most of you are able to see the slides, JEI stands for Junong Educational Institute. And Junong comes from a Korean word which means talent. So what we stand for is in instilling talent in the students that we target. Now, a very brief snapshot about what we are. We are a USA-based company. So one would be wondering, why does it have a Korean name? It stems from the fact that we originated in Korea in the 1970s, but then the company shifted head office to the US in the 1990s. And for the last almost 30 years, we've been based in the US with the entire research development team, marketing, head office, entire management being run out of the US. So effectively now it's a US-based company. What do? We run learning centers which focus on English and maths. And within English, we go for the grammar part as well as to inculcate the habit of reading among children. In maths also, we have a two-pronged approach. The first is the conceptual maths, and the second is problem-solving maths. What is our presence in the world? It's a US-based company. It's been growing across the world now. And at present, we are there in more than 14 countries, having more than 10 lakh students gone through us. Within these 14 countries, we have roughly about 350 odd JEI learning centers, which are currently operational. Who do we target, or who is our target student profile and group? We work with children from 4 to 14 years of age. This represents children going from KG to up to class 7 or 8 approximately. And the idea behind this is that this is the formative years when students largely learn language and maths. These are the two things which is the core subject which is being taught during this point of time. Likewise, JEI focuses on these two subjects to make sure that the foundation of students in these is extremely strong. And whatever they yearn or desire or aspire to do later on, they come from a very strong foundation. Okay? And I'll be talking about this age group because this is a very interesting profile for India. Or maybe I can just talk about it right now. Most of you would know that India has a population of about 135 crores. Roughly 25% of this population falls in the 4 to 14 year category. So we are talking about students, about 32 crores students in India who go to primary school or who are at least eligible to go to primary school. Now, among this, about 15 to 20% of the students go into English medium schools. So we are talking about 7 crore children in India who are actually going to primary school between KG to class 8 and who are studying English and maths in all likelihoods. So the kind of population, the kind of market we have for this kind of education opportunity is extremely vast. And the kind of competition we look at currently is extremely minimal. It's an extremely fragmented market where there is very few organized brands who are trying to do any kind of structured learning. We've seen a few come in the online module, but the online module again finally will appeal to a very small group of students in this whole 7 crore community who have access to the technology infrastructure and to the bandwidth and have ability to learn by themselves without any guidance. So that's a very small portion whom you have all the online learning modules who are targeting. But again, there's a much bigger market which is there. There's a much bigger target group which we can look to target. But I think we'll talk about that more a bit later. I'll just cover a few more things about JEI from a nutshell point of view. Where do we come from? The philosophy right from the beginning, from the time that JEI originated in Korea, has been that every student has the ability to learn. They all learn their mother language. They all learn from looking at things around, and they learn myriad things. They learn, different things by looking and observing. So the power of learning is pretty much there in all the students. What we need to do is to harness that learning skill and make sure that we give them the right environment so that they can learn. Now, the school typically has a certain set environment, and what we aim to bring from JEI is a customized environment where the child can learn as per his own requirement. What we do, how we do that, we use something called a scientifically proven self-learning method, and I'll give you a bit more information or details about that later. But eventually, the idea here is to make sure that every child who comes to our center develops expertise in English and maths by the time they reach the secondary school and by the time they're ready to take a leap into their own choice of career, so that the foundation is extremely strong and the chances of success for them really goes significantly high. So I'll delve a bit more into details if you can just flip to the next slide. This is the history of JEI. Sung-Hoon Park in Korea, he was a founder. And he came with this whole idea of trying to make sure that we have a system through which students can learn. And this whole concept of self-learning method was based on 3 different researches, extensive and very popular researches, which he combined together to make it into a comprehensive, structured method of teaching as well as learning. Can we move to the next slide? I think this is really the core belief of JEI, that every student has the ability to learn. And that's why we use the concept of we put it in our name itself, talent. Talent is an integral part of our whole DNA, and we believe that every child has a talent, and our mission is to support, facilitate, and help changes in behavior so that every single individual can learn, and through this learning, they can be more successful and enjoy a better life. Next slide, please. The learning process, and I'll spend a little time on this because this really is the core part of our product, which we are offering to students, and which is what distinguishes us from other people in this field, and how we make sure that we are more successful, and at least we are definitely successful, whether others are or are not, this is again. And on this slide, there are 3 things which I would like to highlight because those are the 3 pillars of our whole approach. The first is the personalized curriculum. Second is the program JEI workbooks. And the third is the self-learning. So the whole learning process, the way it flows through is that we develop a personalized curriculum. And what is meant by personalized curriculum? Because this is an extremely important part of our whole process of making sure a child learns. And this is customizing the teaching plan or the learning plan based on the child's individual requirement. So we first spend time with the child to understand what he knows, what he doesn't know. We identify in depth what are his areas of weakness. And then we prepare a detailed timetable of what he will be taught over the next 3 to 6 months based on the areas where he needs help. So we are not here to, give him the easy path and tell him, okay, you know this, why don't you keep practicing this? No. What you know, very good. We don't want to waste your time further teaching you the same. We will focus specifically on your weak areas and approach that in a very structured, very planned manner so that we are able to be successful. So that's the personalized curriculum and a pre-planned timetable. Then we go into the program JEI work. So how do we make sure that once we have this timetable, we are able to give the child the right learning? What JEI has done is that for each year or for the entire subject matter, we've broken down concepts into extremely small, minute, bite-sized materials. So the JEI workbooks are probably our IP, what you can call the intellectual property rights. It's really the core part of our whole offering, that these workbooks are structured in a very, very effective manner, which reduces the reliance on the teachers to a very large extent and makes sure that the child is able to learn. So the concepts are broken into extremely small, minuscule size concepts so that a child is able to learn at his own pace. A child may take 1 week to learn one workbook. Sometimes they may take 3 weeks. So it depends on the ability of the child to grasp the subject that we would pace our learning process accordingly. So these JEI workbooks have concept pages, practice material, and review material. This ensures that the pace can be set at the child's level, that there is regular review as well as a feedback mechanism, as well as a test mechanism at the end to ensure that the child has learned. So this is the second key concept. First, identify what the child requires. And then second, have the necessary tools to make sure that we can engage with the child properly. And then the third one, which is the self-learning method. And I'll be sharing a little more detail about the concept behind the self-learning method. But in a very brief, what it ensures is that the child is fully engaged in his own learning process. So we do not teach a child, no. We ask the child to go to the workbooks, to read it, to try and understand by himself, and that encourages him to be self-reliant. So over a period of time, we want the student to be able to learn by himself without relying on teachers or instructors. As long as he has the right tools, the right material, the right workbooks, he should be able to do it by himself. That's really our third key focus, is to make sure that the child is fully involved, and therefore the chances of his learning goes up significantly. We do not want children to be playing with other children or to be distracted while the teacher is writing something on a blackboard or putting something down on a piece of paper. No. We make sure that the child himself is involved in reading, trying to understand, and the teacher acts only as a facilitator. So that really is the core 3 pillars of our learning process, which we use extremely diligently to make sure that the child's learning progresses at a very fast as well as a very thorough manner, so that his expertise is there when he needs it. Of course, how do we do it? Then we have a student-teacher ratio. It goes maximum up to 5. We have a very friendly environment so that children love the environment. They feel inclined to do the work. They work in small groups. So they see other children also doing work and they get encouraged by that. We have several other motivational tools which we use. But really the key here is a personalized curriculum, an extremely strong and detailed workbook mechanism, which ensures that the learning happens in a very effective manner, and a very high degree of student engagement. Can you go to the next slide? And this is more about self-learning method, but I don't think I'll spend too much time on that. It's a lot of theory, but effectively, talent education by Suzuki Shinichi, it basically gives us a philosophy that every child has a talent. That's what this talent education research and paper, which is extremely popular in Japan especially, talks about. The second thing is programmed instruction, and that is what our workbook structure comes from. There's a response, there's a stimuli, there's a response, there's a stimuli, there's a response. So you keep throwing a challenge at the child and he has to respond, and based on his response, we again figure out how we need to throw the next stimuli to it. It's extremely interesting and really powerful kind of a method. If somebody wants, they can go through it. B.F. Skinner is a well-known name in education, and probably some people may be aware of it. And the third one is a mastery learning. It talks about how we need to evaluate the child's progress, and it cannot be just done once. It needs to be an ongoing process, and that's where we also draw our workbook, part of our workbook structure, and part of our whole curriculum management comes through this. So these are three theoretical research tools through which we derive the self-learning method and make sure that we are able to get the child to learn things extremely well and extremely well. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this sort of gives us the overall flow of the program, that we take a diagnostic test, which I talked about, trying to prepare the child's personal curriculum. Then we use our program workbooks. And then we have a review mechanism where we take an interim test, as well as end of period test, achievement test, and then go back to the next level. If the child has made enough progress, we'll go to the next level. So it sort of gives us in a pictorial form the process that we follow, which was explained a bit earlier. Next slide, please. These are some of the benefits of the self-learning method, and I think I've talked a lot about the self-learning method. Maybe we can just move to the financials page, just to give a brief overview. We've already covered this. Can we please move forward? So these are some of the sample workbooks. It's extremely child-friendly, and the use of colors, cartoons, sometimes some animations make it interesting for the child. There's a lot of details and nuances which help both the teacher as well as the child. And sample materials are available on the website if anybody wants to have a look. But it's been prepared with extreme care, and once we get to an advanced stage, I can share with you details about how much of in-depth effort has gone into making these study materials and making it easy for both the child as well as the instructor to use. And this is just a very top-level estimate for a single franchise. An investment would be about 7 to 9 lakhs. The brand franchise fee is 3 lakhs. Each student is expected to pay about 2,500 to 3,500 per subject. That will depend on the city and the cost and the infrastructure of the city. The space requirement is about 500 square feet, and location should ideally be near residential colonies so that children can easily commute in and out. In terms of the key cost components, the study material cost of 600 goes to the US, which provides all the study material. And I must mention here that the study material is standard across the world. It comes from the same place, and it is going to be exactly identical any JEI learning center you go to. So there's a royalty of about 15%. And to give you a sense, if you have about 25 to 35 subjects, which means maybe 20 students, some students doing 2 or 3 subjects. So with about 20 to 25 students, you should be able to get a break even with a payback period of about 18 months. This is about area development partners. We are happy to work with partners who are looking to pick up areas and develop it. And some of the basic terms and the broad terms for taking our master franchises for different cities or maybe a territory is given here. We can finalize it. We don't have a hard and fast rule about territories. We can work flexibly about defining the territories. And we would expect every area development partner to at least set up one center of their own, so that they also get the experience and the knowledge of how to run these centers. This is what a typical franchise center looks like, and we've taken pictures from different. This one is our Ludhiana center. And you'll find some similar kind of center profile across the world. And it's very minimal in terms of infrastructure requirement. We need tables and chairs, and you know, just a neat and clean place, pretty much. These are some of the different tools we use to make studying fun, and you can see that the children are enjoying themselves. And the most important part of our program is to make sure that the child has a good time and wants to come back and you know, take part in the learning process. And some of the things we offer for support, I mean, you know, this is again not exhaustive. This is just to give you a sense of the broad things which we offer. We help you with the site selection. And it's quite important, as with any other business, that a carefully selected site very often plays a very big role in the success of any center. So we do get involved with all of our franchises in looking at the site and trying to figure out whether it makes sense or not. And we work together with them for that. We have training. Training comprises two parts. One is, you know, a new franchise training, where we cover very exhaustively all aspects of running a franchise with the franchise owners. We also provide training for any teachers who come on board, and any teacher or instructor which will be joining any franchise needs to clear the instructor test at the end of it. Okay, so a franchisee will have to make sure that all teaching staff are fully qualified and they have cleared the instructor test. We have a proprietary student management system which will make managing the students in terms of fees, in terms of books, very easy, and therefore the support staff required for the admin purposes goes down quite a lot. We make sure that you have enough workbooks and practice material, and that's the inventory which we will control from our side. We maintain it within India in Kolkata, and we can ship it out to you at very short notice, whatever you need. In terms of marketing collaterals, we have extensive collaterals, both global as well as customized for India, which you can share with you, making it very easy for you to start your marketing activity. We have plenty of marketing ideas again, and we can work with you on what would likely work in your location, what would not work. Some amount of marketing we can help to coordinate from the, you know, from our head office, and some would be done locally. I would like to just, before we get into the Q&A, I think I would just like to mention a couple of things very briefly. A, we're in the education space, which, like I said, 25% of our population is in primary education. It's a huge, huge space. It has very few organized players. There is hardly anybody who's got a big name here. There's no, you know, branded preschool space, or, you know, maybe even in the higher education, we have a lot of brands which are there and well established. But in this space, there's hardly anybody established. We are a multinational brand, so we've got in-depth knowledge, expertise across the world. And trust me, I mean, you know, in the primary space from 4 to 14, the curriculum is same across the world. The children learn ABCD, they learn counting, they learn addition, they learn subtraction. It's pretty much the same progress. So what we bring to the table is a multinational strength and depth of curriculum. What we bring also is a huge market and a sector in which people are willing to spend money. And very, very strong, successful, tried and tested method of teaching. That's what I would like to leave with you. The investment amount you've seen is reasonably small. The target market is big, and it's going to be extremely easy. Again, you know, with the right ingredients and with the right efforts to be able to be successful in this. Now over to, you know, the panelists and anybody else who wants to add any comments before we take to it.
Gaurav sir will just bother you here. Your voice, we are not able to hear you.
Sorry, I was on a
Thank,
mute. I didn't
sure.
realize.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Sachin ji, Prashant ji, for making this to this webinar. This is a very special webinar which we are organizing for our group of investors so that they can get insight on opportunities which we feel are apt for this time because this is a very challenging time and not every opportunity I see is sustainable, but child development I think is a very, very strong category. Always would be very strong priority for parents to go and invest best for their child development and so on. So as you said, every child has potential of learning, which is important. And I think that teaching methodology can make a lot of difference in their development and so on. So on a franchise side, we always start with these 4 points, which are very integral. And I would like to discuss those 4 points with you. Obviously, the first point is credibility, which you as a global company already have that. So full marks on that. So I feel that you not only a business model which has worked in one country, it's worked in many markets and has been extremely proven. I think you are among the top 2 companies in the world which are in the space of child development and skill enhancement for early kids or so on so forth. Second part is I would call the sustainability, because it's still a low cost franchise, and I know now you've also created a master franchise model which is also very low cost. I don't see any master of a multinational brand can come into this price points. So congratulations to you. So you're very sensitive at looking at current cash flow situations to give this as an advantage to our audience and our investors so that they can also partner. I know how much you invest to bring this brand to India. It's much larger investment you've done, but you're sharing that opportunity with like-minded entrepreneurs for some regions. Say if I want to take Rajasthan, I want to take Delhi NCR or Mumbai or places like that. It comes in a relatively lower cost. So there is both, I think, great sustainability and also scalability, especially if you're a master. You can scale it to, say, if I take Delhi NCR or Mumbai, then I can scale to, say, 50 to 60 outlets. Kumon runs about 200 plus outlets now, centers all over India, and you have the equal or bigger opportunity like that. So my 2 questions, which are very important, and I think audience would also like to ask. One is adaptability. How your programs are adaptable to the education, regular formal education in India. So how it complements and how you've seen results, and a little bit on that. And second is predictability, because when you start a center, how much time it takes for you for 3 to 6 months or whatever time is to get to optimum level, and how you ensure and help franchisees to get to that first cycle of recruitment of kids so that their centers are sustainable. So 2 points. One is what is your, so to say, what I call predictability, how you help the franchisee in the early months. And second is adaptability of a business model in different geographical locations. So over to both of you, please. Sachin, now you are, I think, on a mute. So we all doing mistakes of no.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that, and very interesting that you asked. Very relevant and probably the first questions which would come to anybody's mind. And the curriculum forms the most important aspect of it. And we've really spent almost 2 years at our parent center, which we set up in Kolkata. And we've been lucky that we've also got a state board, we've got the CBSE board students, we've got ICSE board students, and we've got international board students. So we've seen this curriculum and we've seen how it works on all these students. And I would say that, till pretty much class 5 or 6, the curriculum across these boards tend to be very similar. The subjects and the content in the subjects are pretty much similar. And it's only when students start going to class 8, 9, 10 that, some of the boards start diverging and have, either more in-depth content or, go into specialized sort of directions. So we've been, we've sort of seen the curriculum and we've scaled it up so that it works effectively across the 4 boards. And within these 4 boards also, we see that when we come to boards like CBSE, the English level tends to be slightly more advanced. So when we get a student who's studying in a CBSE or ICSE board, we will put them start them at par with the international level on English. But when we get a student from a local state board, then we typically start them 1 or even 2 notches lower in English. Maths, typically we've seen again that with the new sort of curriculum which JEI has benchmarked itself to, in maths, we are pretty much at the global level across the state as well as the central boards. So for maths, we work in sync with the international standards and we start students off at the same level. But in English, we tend to differentiate based on the student's board. But again, I would like to highlight that more than the board very often, it's also the school profile which makes a bit of a difference of where the starting point for the student should be. So we take that into, we factor that into our initial assessment of student. And the very, I would say that the very strong point we have is that before we start off a student, we do not go by what school or what board they go to. We actually assess his own ability at that point of time, his own knowledge, his own skills. So even if he's from a very high-end board, or if it's through ICSE or CBSE or whichever one, even if he comes from a good board or a good school, but if he's not capable enough to do that level of work, we will go down 1 notch, 2 notch, 3 notch, whatever amount required, so that we go and clear his skills and bring him up to the curve. So to answer, first question in 2 parts, curriculum, we've tested it, we've aligned our study material, and it's pretty much very well aligned with all the boards in India. And what we do further to make sure that we talk to a child in his language is take his personal assessment and start off where he feels comfortable. So, that's the first part. And the second part on the predictability and the sustainability, I think we've made some changes to the model based on the Indian environment, and we scaled down. And if you go to the US, for example, the center is 2,000 square feet. It needs 100 students to be viable, and it costs something like 20-25 lakhs. The equivalent in terms of purchasing power parity would be 20-25 lakhs. But we've sort of scaled down the model to the Indian requirement, saying that we will work with smaller units with much lower break-even, so that the units become a lot more viable. And we're looking at 25 students, which is, I think I shared some numbers earlier. We've got a population of 135 crores, 25% 4 to 14. I mean, any which way, if you look at it, if you have a region with a population of 3 to 5 lakhs, 25% of that population will go. So any place you open a center, you would have easily, 1 lakh odd student community, and to tap 25 students is something which cannot be impossible. And we have extensive marketing ideas. We are happy to work based on the local market situation. So we don't have a standard marketing approach saying, okay, wherever you open a center, you got to do this. No, we work with the franchise partners. We understand the local market, and we make sure that we attract the first 20-25 students, and then make sure that the center becomes viable within maybe 2 to 3 months.
Thank you very much. I think now I'd like to invite Sonia to take some questions and your remarks, Sonia.
Hit me on mute. Thank you. Thank you, Prashant ji. Thank you, Sachin ji, for coming on this webinar. I think education is one of the important hot subject these days. And we have a lot of questions coming from the viewers. Most of these questions I see Prashant ji already answered. So just to give a little perspective, I feel overall education landscape has been transforming rapidly for the past few years, which we see, and office supplementary education has gained a very big mass in the overall education pie in India. And we see the importance of having skill over just degrees and marks, which is also surpassing. I was just going through one of the reports, and I saw that being represented in the presentation also by Sachin ji. So there are overall 4 competencies which are required in the formative years of a child, which have been identified as being very, very important for a future success of an individual, being successful for any role in his life, which being cognitive, social, emotional, early language, and early numeracy. And these are 2 languages, subjects which I see are given a lot of importance also at JEI. And overall, as an industry, as a category, there's a big interest which is coming from the investors. I was reading a lot of Indian startups also. We didn't have any startups in this space, but a lot of organized players also have started coming in, and now the government also have started showing a lot of interest in this space. I was recently reading Tamil Nadu government tying up with an Australian brand for mathematics classes across their schools in Tamil Nadu, from kindergarten to sixth grad school. So what we have seen, and you also talked about the brand being a Korea and then shifted to US as its headquarters. And Asian countries historically has seen a very big demand of supplementary education, and which drives a very big chunk of the education spend, which is close to about 10%, if I'm not wrong. And in India, like we talked about, there's a big addressable market, Generation Z, which is the later years of Generation Z, and now the Generation Alpha, which is coming up. So while we see, from the opportunity side, there's a big opportunity, and there's no questions on that. And overall, I think the recent chunk of the overall supplementary market, which also includes tuitions and other professional courses, is about 39% odd. My first question, I didn't see many audience putting that, but that comes as a big question to me, because I see a lot of these startups I talked about. There's a company called Paper Videos, I think somewhere in the South. I think there's a company based out of. I see many other education companies. They've come up with a technology platform or a digital platform, so to say, and that is kind of defining the education landscape, especially in these times where people are not getting out of their homes. YouTube, for example, have millions of watch hours every day, on the education side, and we see a lot of live learning programs which are done even for this category through various technologies like AR and VR, because very difficult to engage age of 4 to 8 odd years. And what I was also reading, and looks very evident, the near future will have a lot of consumption of internet, which starts coming from the education companies, contrary to the belief that e-com is the biggest consumption of internet. I wanted to have your view on that, because we don't see GI in the digital space or the technological space as we speak today. I wanted to understand, how do you think this particular situation or overall space of digital education, online marketing, learning and technological blend would come in JEI, which makes it more inclusive, and we have everybody benefiting, because I'm sure with these centers running, these centers not running today because of the obvious reasons. How do you see that coming in, and maybe something on those lines, if that has been into discussions? I'm sure audience would also like to have some briefing on that.
Yep, so that's become very relevant, and you rightly pointed out that the digital space is something that needs to be covered. And we've already launched a digital learning mechanism in the US, which caters to the slightly older age group. I think they've started from class 3 and class 4 onwards. So when we look at the KG to class 2 space, unfortunately, at this point of time, we are not looking at rolling out a digital method immediately. Because honestly, it would not really make sense. If you need the parent to sit throughout the process and try to teach his child, that is really not the method with which JEI works. But for the older group, starting from class 3, 4, we already have a module which is rolled out in the US, and we expect it to come to India within the next month or two. So that's a space we will definitely be covering, and we will be offering both in-class as well as a pure online and a hybrid model, depending upon the.
And that starts from what age group?
At this point of time, they're checking it out in the US, what is the right age group. So it's in market. I think they'll be rolling it out from class 3, which would be, I think, about the age group of 9 years old or so, 8 to 9. So 4 to 7, 4 to 8, we will not be having an online module at this point of time. And that will probably come in later by next year, probably. But within the next couple of months, we expect to roll out, starting from 8 to 14, we should expect online.
Okay, very helpful, Sachin. I have a few questions which I'll take up, going through the presentation. We talked about two models. One was unit model and the other is the area franchisee model. You talked about the number of students it would take for a break even and the number of months it would take for a unit to break even. If you can just help us in understanding the unit economics, what kind of occupancy cost, what kind of revenue throughput an outlet can have based on your own experience of running the centers in the country. And please include the salary for the staff. What percentage would that be? What percentage of the occupancy cost typically which goes in? And typical fee for a student, and how long it takes for a center to reach to optimum level, which is 25 students. How long does it take for them to reach that level of 25?
To reach to 25 students, I think we work with a 3-month time frame. But we do expect a slippage of about a couple of months, depending upon getting the marketing strategy right, or having to, sort of refine our marketing approach. But I would say that between 3 to 6 months is, and, the outer limit would be 6 months, and hopefully if we start off on the right foot, it will be there in 3 months. In terms of the cost structure, there are two large cost components. The first one being the rental. The rental of the space would vary from location to location, but we are looking at the 500 square foot space, and it's going to be a fixed cost. It's not really per se a percentage cost, but again, with a 25 student kind of a, 25 students with about 3,000 rupees kind of a fee structure, you would expect the rental cost to form about 30%, 35% of the total cost. Another 30, 35. So that's at 25 students, it will be about 30% of the cost. But this is a fixed cost. So when the student count goes up, the percentage keeps falling down in terms, the percentage of the total revenue.
Sorry, please go ahead.
And then there's another 30-35%, which is a variable cost, which comes through as a combination of the royalty and the cost of books. So that would be 35%. Your rental, depending upon how many students you have, could be, starting from, it could be different percentages. But, and the remaining cost come from teachers, which is again a fixed cost. The teacher cost varies again from 8,000 to 15,000. It would depend on the locality and the profile of teacher you take. But if you caught the aspect I spoke about the JEI workbooks in my presentation, our reliance on teachers is extremely low. The workbook structure and the whole approach of self-learning method, which requires a high level of participation from the student, makes the teachers mere enablers. If a child is getting stuck, they are there to enable and to make sure that the child's attention does not go. So, we are happy to work with postgraduates who have strong command over English and maths. And again, you would notice that bulk of our offering is for children from KG to class 7, where both the English and the maths is not extremely complicated. So any person who's done, let's say, a post-graduation with an English or a maths as one of the major subjects would be very easily able to, take care of the curriculum aspect. And what training we focus on in our teacher training is more on how to use our books and make sure that the child's engagement and learning is maximized. So we work with non-professional teachers ideally, because professional teachers have their own styles, and we prefer teachers taking our style and our method. And they are working part-time in the afternoons. They would not be extremely fancy and high cost resource. So that cost aspect tends to be quite low. The operational costs involve typically electricity, a bit of stationery. Again, those are extremely low. So two key components would be rental and the cost of books and the royalty. And those would start at, at the break-even level, that would form about 70% of your total cost base. As you scale up the number of students, it would go down to below 50%. So if a franchisee hits 70, 80, 90 students, they would be having a gross margin of about 50 to 60% of the student fee. And their cost would be teachers and probably electricity, stationery, which would be a very, very small percentage, maybe 5-10%.
Sachin, contrary to that, if because from 25 to 80, there's also bigger space that is required. There's a bigger infrastructure that is required. Don't you think the cost of occupancy and even the children ratio, the teacher ratio, which is 5 to 1, I saw that in your presentation, that would increase. That means your cost of occupancy, your cost of servicing would also increase in that case. One. Second, my question which I asked you, what is the kind of sales and average outlet of JEI does? Because 75 kids on the higher side, you said, but 25 kids is what it takes for an outlet to get break even with 3,000 fees, which makes up amount of about 75 or 1,000, which an outlet does. So, and that being on the lower side, you said, just to break even, and there should be an upside too. So just to have an understanding between the the higher and the lowest, and what is the average revenue one outlet can make if they are performing on the levels as you mentioned, and how do and what kind of absolute margins one would have in a scenario like this?
So from a scalability point of view, 500 to 600 square feet of space would typically have 2 classrooms, and that could take care of easily 100 students. So while we're talking about a break-even of 25, break-even of 25 doesn't mean that the capacity for center is 25. The capacity will be about 125 to 150 students, which a center can have, with a student ratio of about 5:1, and with 2 classrooms working 6 days a week. Okay, from 3 to 8. So I can share the match with you, but it's something that we'll work through, and you have a capacity of 125. If you hit 75 to 80 students, you will get a reasonably, like I said, a gross margin of about 50 to 60% is yours. And among that, you just have to cover the teacher's cost as well as the electricity and overheads, which are not extremely hard. Because if you look at it, the workbooks are being provided by us, which is the key, so to say, product which is there. And the teachers are going to be, as I explained, low-cost resources, which are mostly there as an enabler. That is going to be a reasonably low-cost, expense, low expense. Your electricity overhead is going to be just stationary items, which are again extremely low. A bit of electricity. So, overall, the variable cost of running a center is not extremely high. And therefore, as you scale up the number of students, the incremental margin that you get is going to be extremely high.
And also, I feel the rental should be lower because we're not looking at premium spots. We're looking at neighborhood places which might not be very expensive.
Correct. And we need
it should be lesser than 35%. In my own calculation, what I see, with the kind of revenue that you would make. So this should be at least 10% minimum down than 35%.
So as you scale up the student count, it goes down quite significantly. And that's what I'm saying, that once you hit, once you start crossing the break-even number, the incremental margin that you get is going to be extremely high.
Also be a good complementing if you already have some infrastructure which you're running and you add this business. So I think your occupancy cost would also go down and can be a great opportunity. While I like your aesthetics because the aesthetics you do gets a great environment of self-learning and that's very important because these learning centers should also have some kind of environments which are good for the kids to be encouraged to learn. But I think if somebody has existing, maybe a center or any other thing which can be friendly for younger kids to come, then converting that and posting that some size, this business can save a lot of occupancy cost for them.
Great. I have another question. We talked about the area franchisee. What kind of fee are we charging to the area franchisee? One, what kind of sharing happens between the area franchisee and the unit franchisee is my question number 2. And third is, you talked about a term of 5 years. So which also gives me a sense that the 5 year is also a development period for a franchisee. So he would develop year on year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what happens at the end of the year, say year 5, the number of franchisees that he appoints, how the sharing happens for reasons the agreement is terminated or expired, it is not renewed. What happens to the number of franchisees which he has done? Is the sharing of that or subsequent royalties go to him, and will that be transferred to the brand in terms of the support which comes to the unit franchisee? So they all assign to the parent in India, which is the master franchisee, you, to take care of all training or support aspects.
I'll take it in reverse order. Firstly, the 5-year period is the initial period, and like we rightly said, it's about the development. But we set up a very simple and very straightforward performance matrix to evaluate whether the next renewal will go through or not. And usually the renewals are based on the performance. So, as long as you meet the mutually agreed target franchisees that we had set at the beginning, it would get renewed automatically without any additional fees. So it's a very simple, very straightforward process. And vice versa, if you've not met the targets that we are setting out, then the franchisee gets discontinued. At that point of time, since you want to meet the targets, if there's very few targets, if you set up only 2 or 3 or 4 franchises, I don't, that's where we say that, if you're not being able to deliver, then we need to terminate. And the intention is very clear. We do not want people to take a big multinational brand names franchisee, on board and then squat on it. So we will work. If there are genuine reasons why a master franchise or area partner is not able to meet targets, we will work with them closely to make sure that they are successful. But this kind of a non-renewal usually happens when either there is gross neglect from the franchisee, or if there is any other kind of behavioral or major performance issues. So that's what we are looking at. We look for only long-term partners. We are not here trying to hire and fire or work with short-term output. And education as a field is extremely standard. It's a word of mouth, highly credible industry. We do not want to work on short-term arrangements with anybody. We want our partners to be there for the very long term on mutually beneficial basis, so that they also earn and we also earn and we are able to achieve our own.
I'd like to take up one question which comes from Mr. Amarkant. He says, how do we decide, maybe a tip from your end, how do we decide on the location for a center as we start to commence? Because they understand they can't start with 25 kids immediately, it'll take a period of time. And we can't change the center once our numbers of students grows. So what is the average size? You said a capacity of 100, which is obviously rotational, but is 500 good enough to host 100 to 125 kids?
Absolutely.
And I also have, maybe I'll add on to give more clarity to our audience. Is there an option for our franchisees to relocate for reasons they find, they are outgrowing the numbers? Can they relocate or they find they're not enough opportunity in the location which they have opened? Is there an option to relocate without any extra cost? Obviously the cost on the infrastructure would be there, but any added cost from the brand which is levied on the franchisee?
So for the initial phase, when we are looking to expand and grow, the relocation option is open for a franchisee if they wish to do so, provided the target location they want to go to does not have an existing franchise. Okay, so we would not allow somebody to go and step on another franchisee's foot just because he's been successful and able to develop a market. So relocation, as long as you don't go to another, we are open to it, and there should be a genuine reason and follow the due process.
Okay. So that brings me to another question. What is the radius that you give within which the next outlet or center cannot be operated?
It would depend on location to location again. So we have to look at the population profile of a city or a center and see what is the kind of potential the market has. So it would vary. It could be as small as 2 kilometers. It could be as big as 5 kilometers. In certain cities, we may be open to give the whole city rights to a single operator. So it really depends on the population and the demographic profile of the particular location. And coming back, 500 square feet is the smallest size. If you grow and if you want to relocate to a bigger size, we would be more than happy to facilitate the process. That is, clearly a win-win situation for all of us, and there's absolutely no reason not to encourage a franchisee to do that. 500 is the smallest size because we do need 2 classrooms to be able to take care of different kind of students. We can't start with anything smaller than that.
Okay, and this would accommodate how many students?
500 square feet would be adequate to take care of 100 plus students.
Okay.
Okay, it would require a little bit of working on the schedules, but it's easily doable, and probably we can scale it up to 150.
Okay. I'm just browsing through the questions in the chat room, and most of these questions have been answered by Prashantji. I see him answering all these questions simultaneously. Any question, Prashantji, which you think you want to pick up, or Sachin, you want to pick up from the chat, you can. But pretty much, I think all these answers have been given at this.
Just to take up this point, we've understood the business model. The business model is fairly straightforward, and it is easy for anybody to understand and looks very attractive. We also see very strong influences in the market where parents would continue to spend more on their kids development and so on and so forth. So but there should be some risk also. What are the 2 or 3 things which you would always advise the franchisees not to do, or the kind of franchisees which should not come in a business like this, or areas which you have understood what doesn't go? I mean, what is the risk in this which you would like to highlight and say, because every business has some risk. What is the risk in your regard?
I think I would say education is a very, very sensitive. Since we are dealing with children, it's a very, very sensitive area. You require a lot of empathy. You require a lot of involvement, and you require a lot of emotional quotient. So if people want to just view it as a cold-cut business model that, I just want to invest something and I will not be involved in any which ways in the business, I think, those kind of people, we would generally tend to say that personal involvement to some extent is a must. And oversight, because you're dealing with small children, you need to be involved. You need to take care of some of the nuances of the business to make sure that, things don't go wrong. So that is an extremely important aspect, and I think the biggest risk factor arises here is that, what is the level of engagement and involvement of the franchise owner. And you would be aware that some of the people who are in this space actually require the franchise owner to be a teacher or to be an active management person who gives a certain minimum number of hours to the franchise. Now, we don't impose it as a hard rule, but we do expect a reasonable amount of involvement from the franchise owner. That, I think, is the biggest risk, is that, if you just do not look at, you just leave the business alone, then the chances of it being, to run automatically goes down. Second thing is,
so it is a good point, and I think we always advise at Franchise India for any franchisee to buy a business. It says franchising is not just about return on investment; it's a return on time business, or return, in your case, what you said, return on involvement. So the ROI has a different meaning here. So return on involvement is very important. If you're involved and you're working in the business and you're sensitive, you manage relationships, you manage parents well, you work with saying that kids get good feedback on what their learning processes are, then I think your retention is better. And once your retention is better, then you will be able to next batch, your recruitment becomes better. And the life cycle of education is all about recruitment and retention. If you continue to recruit kids and retain them and get them better feedbacks, your center would always get. And we've always seen that some franchisees in education have excelled because they were more responsible, and some have not because they treated this as any kind of a retail business. This is not a retail business where you just open up a center and expect kids to walk in just because you have only the brand. Brand can do to a certain point, but after that, I think the franchisee has to take a little bit of charge.
There's the one other thing I think becomes the challenge at times is the level of what you commit to the parents. Now, education is a process which takes a certain amount of time, and promising miracles to the parents sometimes backfires. So, a child who comes into your center, he will need 3 to 6 months to improve. And if we make a promise that, within 3 weeks or 2 weeks, the child will suddenly become Einstein, I think overcommitment leads to under-delivery, and being a word of mouth and a credibility-based, sector, that becomes the biggest, that becomes another big, challenge or risk which comes up in our business. So I would just highlight these two things probably as something to be mindful of for people.
Very important and very, very good insights on the business, and I hope that our audience also got some feedback. So now we've come down to the end of the session, but final word from everybody, starting from you, Sonia. What do you have assessment on the business and some of the points which you would like to highlight?
Thank you. I would say thank you, Prashant and Sachin ji, for putting up this detailed presentation. I would say there are bigger drivers for an opportunity in the supplementary education, so to say, because in India we have very poor student and teacher ratio in the classrooms, and to an extent the quality of teaching is also questionable. And we have seen various reports where this has been mentioned. And supplementary companies or brands or institutions, help a lot of students to gain that gap, or rather cover that gap, and that comes as a big edge. And third, I would say, is a big variation in the individual needs, because every individual, every student is very unique, very different, and that kind of a focus cannot be given in classes, and hence the focus of parents on supplementary education. But there are three things which I say are becoming extremely important, which is accessibility, affordability, and also mobility now. These are three important dimensions which I personally feel, every education institute, body, brand, company should really imbibe in their business models, whether that's core or supplementary education for companies like you, because the average household expense for an urban household is on education, which is second largest as far as wallet share goes. And companies like yours and overall education system plays a very important role in taking the quality of students and overall I would say shaping the lives of these individuals. I feel there's one thing which was also my very first question was digital. I feel that is one area which JEI should immediately work upon to make it more exclusive, more accessible and available to a larger audience. So with this, we wish you all the best, and I really hope that Franchise India plays an important role in your journey of expansion within India. Thank you so much.
Sure. So thank you very much. I think any last words from you, Sachinji, Prashantji, what you want to say to the audience?
So we want to thank the entire team of Franchise India for bringing this up and getting all of us in front of more and more people. And we will definitely keep an eye out for the digital model, which you guys are suggesting. We do have something working in the US, although, it's very tough because of the age group we cater to, which is the 4 to 14, more focused on 4 to 10 years. To get them to sit on a screen, it's a little bit of a challenge, but we are working with it, and we should be able to come up with something even better, especially in these COVID times. I do understand people do have concerns when classes will start, things like that. But I think because we have a low ratio and of students to teacher, we have a smaller group setting. So we will put all the precautions as needed so that we can start these things much faster than even school is, because we have a smaller center setup compared to what school is. Thank you everybody once again for joining us, and thank you Franchise India for bringing this all together.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being part of this. We have a strong belief in your program. We know your success globally. You have a lot of people out there globally who have benefited out of becoming a franchisee with JEE, and I think India has that opportunity. We have a lot of strong entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs. I think it's a great business for them, especially now, because a lot of women are looking for a career change and they don't want to really go back to their regular jobs and things like that. So they want to do something close to their neighborhood. And so this is a perfect timing. If you're looking for a change, this can be a great opportunity. It's a very credible brand, and Franchise India is extremely proud to partner with you. Thank you very much. Anything you want to say, Sachinji? I think we missed you because you were 1 minute ahead.
No, I think covered pretty much everything, and thanks so much for the opportunity and for your thoughts and views.
Thank you very much. And if you can be kind enough to also put your email ID on the group, so anybody wants to reach you directly or get your kids admitted in your school, so you never know what interests people now, right? So please put your email ID and we will obviously our teams would work closely with you and take it from there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I think
you.
Rachna,
So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gaurav sir. Thank you so much, Sonia ma'am, for giving us all the facts and figures about the industry and about the brand. We really thank you, Prashant sir, Sachin sir, for taking out time today and giving us this understanding. For our friends and participants who have joined, we have just shared all the contact details. This belong to our regional team as well as corporate team. You can contact us through these emailers. I'm just sharing the social sites information also. You can contact us through our social platform, and you can directly write to us. Thank you so much for joining us. And tomorrow we are doing, so my colleague Dheeraj will share the information. So tomorrow we are representing you another brand, Credar. They are known, that's the trustworthy name for in the field of automobiles. So look forward to have you tomorrow, sharp at 12 p.m. Thank you so much everyone for joining us. Stay safe, take good care of yourself and your family.
If you want to reach out to us, please write to us on all the platforms. And if you want to reach me and Sonia on directly, you can reach us on LinkedIn. So please send your questions, anything we can answer. And if you want to reach out to JEE, please reach out directly to their email ID, which is also mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.